Friday, 22 July 2022. This is Skidmark on the American arrogant attitude towards the rest of the world. I have spoken about it a few times, and I think by now it's quite clear that I don't like what is happening in the West. I live in South Africa, and my country was hammered with sanctions by the West to change our political system. And after a long time, the system eventually changed, and all the things that the West were warned about is playing out. It's there. Go and check the news. South Africa has been destroyed from a major economical force and player in Africa and on the world markets. It has been dismantled into the third world. Infrastructure has been destroyed, nothing has been maintained, but that is not for this Skidmark. In this Skidmark, I want to talk about India, and I'm going to start it off with this. The Central Bank of India approved international settlements in rupees. Some time ago, an event of this kind looked very unlikely, but now it is perceived quite naturally. The role of dollar as a global currency is declining, which leads to the strengthening of the role of regional currencies. Now, I've got a very soft spot for this type of thing. In my professional life, I was involved in a lot of these financial transaction management systems, and I wrote a few applications for it. I was also very much involved in mobile payments and so forth. But what this is showing us is that the rest of the world is beginning to break away from the monopoly of the American financial control over the world. Now, Putin, he is playing an important role in this dismantling, but India is an up-and-coming superpower, not a superpower as a military superpower that wants to take over the world and enforce its will on everybody alive and so forth. No, it's just rising up and becoming an important player in the world. Just as the European industries made it possible for the European economies to rise up after the Second World War, and the American economy made the Americans richer after the Second World War, they grew through it. The so-called third world, or the rest of the world, is catching up. And it is happening sometimes under severe constraints imposed on them by the West. And this sanction war that the West so much love, that thing has destroyed lives and has destroyed economies and has destroyed people's lives. And I have got an enormous dislike in that. Who gave the Americans the authority to dictate to the world who to trade with, how to trade with them, and with what they can trade with them? This must end, and I am happy to see how Putin is dismantling that stranglehold. And in the background, the Chinese and the Indians are playing with him. And it looks like Turkey is also joining the fight. Now, there's strong indications that South America and the Middle East is also gravitating towards that. It is time for the Americans to accept that their reign of global terror is over. And this thing of the Indian banks is a very important thing, because these are the things that the West has always used to manipulate countries around the globe to bow down to their will. So I'm glad to see the Indians doing this. And I have spoken about it in a Skidmark, about the mobile payment systems that are taking a strong foothold in the East. And that makes it more logical for countries, and especially their citizens, to freely trade with each other. in their own currencies. What the hell is the story of everybody must use the dollar? That is bullshit. That dollar, in practical terms, that dollar is basically, if someone gives you $1, it is a check against an account with a $38 trillion overdraft. How sure are you that that check will ever clear? And this is something that the world is becoming aware of, and I like it. But for me, in this Skidmark, the real thing is this. Now, read this and think about it. The arrogance of the Americans has no boundaries. It is well known that the Indians refused to participate in the sanctions war against Russia. India has got good commercial relationships with Russia and other relationships. Indian army uses a lot of Russian equipment and things like that. So the bonds between India and Russia is there, and it is solid, and it is based on mutual respect and simple trade. The Indians refused to implement the sanctions against the Russian oil and the Russian commodities. And what does this consulate in Mumbai of America do? It sends a letter to the port authorities. They don't talk to the Indian government, which they are supposed to do. They are their guests of India. No, they just assume their role of global ruler, and they send a letter directly to the Port Authority of Mumbai. US Consulate tells Mumbai port to block Russian ships. India gives a scathing response. The US Consulate General wrote a direct letter to the Mumbai Port Authority asking it to not allow Russian vessels to dock at the port due to the American sanctions. Guys, this type of arrogance needs to be choked. But they did not take note of how things work in India. So the Port Authority contacted the Indian government and told them what the Americans said. And it is quite clear from snippets that I saw that the Indian government told that American consulate to go and jump in the sea. Now, here is a post that I found on Twitter. With the USS coup on Imran Khan PTI in Pakistan and Sri Lanka, they were sending a message to India. Modi better get ready for civil unrest. Khan swore that he would absolutely not allow the CIA or US Special Forces to use Pakistan as a base ever again. Now, what is important here, Modi better get ready for civil unrest. I will start swearing if I allow my instincts to take over. But this is what the Americans do all around the globe. Everywhere. They interfere in the domestic affairs of the countries, and they stir up trouble as far as they go. I listened to a debate last night, and the guy is living in Indonesia, and he made some comments about the shit the Americans are stirring in all the countries that are involved in that Belt and Rail project of the Chinese. Everywhere the Americans are involved in starting terrorist organizations and financing terrorists to topple governments and things like that. The Americans are really overplaying their hand. I don't think they realize how much the rest of the world actually hates the Americans. And this is something that we should take note of. India is like China, a rising superpower. The times have long gone when European colonialists, a master race with a master race mindset, could invade, conquer or bully countries of the global south. India is not a small country that can be bullied into submission. India is Bharat is again a superpower. The fact of the matter is, the rest of the world is growing. The rest of the world is catching up. And the Americans and the West need to take note. They are going to come out short in this thing. They must stop this interference. They keep on acting like colonial powers. They see the rest of the world as their colonies and they can dictate what they can. I don't know where this is going to end, but I am so confident that the awakening in the global south is going to be a nightmare for the so-called global west. And by the way, hit the like, hit the subscribe, share the stuff. My stuff has been shadow banned, and it is as if every instance of social media is pulling a blanket over my things. It makes me angry, but what can I do about it? This is the world we live in. That is the world we live in. Control, control, control. And I say, bugger that.